Creativity is something that can't be taught. We all have a spark inside of us, waiting to be ignited. Sometimes it happens by itself, triggered by outside forces influencing our psyche. Other times, it's coaxed out by a mentor or another person we listen to or admire. You can't teach someone how to be creative, but you can teach them how they can use their own creativity. Let's go back a few years, all the way to 2001. I'm in first grade, and my world is ruled by Pokemon, Digimon, and Cartoon Network. First grade was a time for a lot of firsts in my life, and one of them was creating my own drawings out of my imagination. No copies or interpretations of things seen on TV. These were things straight out of my head and into my thin school paper. Like any kid back then, Digimon and Pokemon ruled the land. Sure, the later had always been the most popular, but at the time, there was just something that attracted me more to Digimon. The story felt more mature, the characters were grittier, the stakes were higher, plus the monsters could actually talk. And out of all of them, Agumon was my favorite. I'm gonna sidetrack for a bit here and talk about the evolution sequences in Digimon. I know it doesn't look like much, but back then, my little 5-year-old brain fired away in synapses every time I saw them transform. I talked about sparks of creativity being ignited within us by outside forces, and this was definitely one of those times for me. For the uninitiated on Digimon, Agumon evolves into a bigger monster called Greymon, and after that, it has a second evolution called Metal Greymon. In this form, he gains metal parts to his design, including a metal helmet-like mask on his head. I don't know why, believe me. I've tried a lot to understand why I was so fixated with that particular part of his design, but I loved it. The helmet on him, the way it looked, that's what started everything. I was, and I will always be, a sucker for dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. That kind of explains why I liked Agumon so much, but yeah, love me some dinos. And out of that love, in Metal Greymon's head, came the Comumano. Of course, I don't remember the first time I drew him, but after that, for about 4 years, he was my only OC. His name actually means human eater in Spanish, and no, I don't have a clear idea as to why I named him that. His purpose was not to eat humans. I think I just liked the way it rolled off my tongue when I said it. I don't know, I was a kid, what can I say? He was a big lizard-like dino-looking creature with serrated teeth and a reinforced exometal armor for skin. Intelligent, capable of speech, and with a sense of morality. Look, I can't tell you exactly why I became so attached to this Gorgonopsid-looking creature that I popped into existence, but man, I have to admit that he was the catalyst for everything else after him. He was my creative spark. He was the first, before any other character that I had designed throughout my life. Up until this point, right now, as I'm recording this, he was the first. A bit of backstory. Now, this may not have been the first one I came up with, but it's the one I remember the most. The Comananos are an alien species from a faraway galaxy. One in particular remained dormant inside a meteor for millions of years, drifting in space until one day he crashes onto Earth and is captured by a lab that performs experiments on him until, with the help of some scientists that he befriends, escapes the facility and is free to roam and experience Earth. I think another thing that I remember is that they're born from eggs, but females produce milk for their young. And after some time, I decided that there was going to be more than one roaming the Earth, and I made a blue-eyed white one courtesy of Yu-Gi-Oh's influence at the same time. Some even went through evolutions themselves. From 2001 until about 2007, I had no other original characters. Sure, I drew dragons and dinos and other stuffs, and yes, one or other, like character that I had designed, but none of them had a backstory. I used to fill my school notebooks with doodles of them. I imagined anime-styled intros to popular songs I listened on my iPod. I replaced characters from musicals with them and pictured them singing the songs in my head. I imagined him running alongside the car and how he would look on the cover of VHS tapes. I guess in many ways he was more than just this original character that I drew from time to time. Well, not from time to time, almost every day back then. He was my imaginary friend. He was this sort of guardian angel. Okay, no, not a guardian angel. That's going a little bit too far. I mean, I did know that he was fictional, but I mean, you get it, he was very important for me. Anyway, I even got into a fight for him. Yeah, like actual fist fight for him. Yeah, I wish I were kidding, but I am not. It was 2006, and I was in Catholic school. More on that later. And I didn't have many friends. I only had one, which we will call Camilla. At one point, Camilla and I got very close, and I decided to tell her about my characters and their world, and she liked it. And I liked that she liked it. But I think she liked it a little bit too much. You see, Camila and I both like to draw, and one day she shows up with her own original character. Yeah, if you're an artist, you probably know where I'm going here. Camila took Comano, painted him blue, and stuck fins in him. This she called Sharky, and she had come up with him completely on her own. Now, let me clarify something. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from something and creating a version of your own, as long as you're honest about where your inspiration comes from. The more obvious the source, the shittier you'll look claiming it's a completely original idea. This very concept I tried to explain to Camila as best as I could with my 6th grade brain, and it didn't work out. It was her character, she said. No inspirations or copies of mine, she claimed, even though it was very obvious. The other classmates latched onto the discussion and took her side, not because they thought like her, but just as an opportunity to bully me further. There I was, 4 years into the darkest period of my childhood, stuffed in an ugly, suffocating uniform with teachers and classmates and no friends, in a place where I wasn't allowed to play soccer in recess because it made us open our legs too much and it wasn't ladylike. Well, where they called me a devil worshiper because I drew dragons. There I stew for 4 years. And among the few things that kept me sane was my OC. He was mine. I made him. I developed him and his world and made it my comfort in my everyday solitude, and this friend was trying to take it away from me. I gained nothing from the fight. After that, I talked to Camila less and less, and thankfully after a couple of weeks, she lost interest and Sharky disappeared into nothing. In 8th grade, I moved schools and the nightmare was partially over. I'm not saying everything was unicorns and rainbows after that, but it was a lot more tolerable, believe me. I grew up, I became a teenager, and continued to draw, and eventually made even more original characters with their own backstories and their own universes and worlds, and Comano and his universe quietly took a backseat in my mind. Every once in a while, he pops in my head and I draw him. It's funny and beautiful how little his design has changed. After all these years, he still roams my head, from time to time appearing in my memories. I think about him and I remember the kid I was and how I didn't leave that aspect of myself once I became an adult. It's odd how much he means to me, yet I hardly ever talked about him or even drew him after some time. I think after a while, I decided that he was just going to be mine, and mine alone, by living just in my head and not on my paper. After a certain point, I didn't really feel the need to share him with the world anymore. Maybe in part for what happened with Camilla, I don't know. All I know for sure is that he was, and he is, my first OC. A clear marker to the beginnings of me as an artist, and will forever be a huge staple in my childhood memories. All that born out of a strange fixation with a robotic dinosaur's helmet. Funny, isn't it? So, what about you guys? Who's your first OC? What's their backstory?